Are you or someone you know looking to buy or sell a home? When you use a HomeGain Realtor to buy or sell a home, you can get $150. Visit homegain.com and click on the Promo 150 banner at the top of the page to get started. Compare HomeGain Realtors and choose your favorite. Complete your home purchase or sale transaction with a HomeGain Realtor, and HomeGain will pay you $150. Get started today by going to homegain.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Real Estate 360 Live. I'm your host, Ryan Soper, joined today by my guest, Cammarosano, the general manager of HomeGain. Reminder that Real Estate 360 is designed to build the Washington, D.C. Metro's housing and credit markets one house at a time. If you ever have any questions, concerns, or real estate needs, the best number to reach out to us is 877-245-2030. It's 877-245-2030, or via the web at www.realestate360live.com. That's realestate360live.com. So I wanted to kind of wrap up on the last topic as far as, people trying to refinance and not being able to do so. One of the tips that I do want to give you if you're already in the process of refinancing or you're looking to refinance is that don't do anything that could possibly adversely affect your refinance. Now, a couple tips would be, number one, do not at all go out and try to take out any sort of new credit, meaning, credit cards, auto loans, just private personal loans. Don't do any of that because it's going to show up on your credit report as a credit inquiry. I don't know if many of you know this, but now lenders can they pull your credit once, but they can also pull it again, up to, I think it's like 2 or 3 days before closing to make sure that there hasn't been any sort of changes while you were going through that loan process. Well, I can tell you that there's people out here that don't follow this, and all of a sudden they have an inquiry from another creditor that shows up on there. The lender questions it. You have to then explain yourself why that is, and if they don't believe it or have reason not to believe it, they have grounds to deny the loan. So it's really critical for you guys to be paying attention that you don't change any of your financial status or credit status while you're going through the loan process. Another example of this would be making any large deposits into your bank accounts, especially on purchase transactions. Obviously, any deposits that are over like $1,000 that are going into your bank accounts need to be sourced. And if they can't be sourced, then that's grounds for the loan to be denied. So,
Brian, why would that matter if you actually had more money in your bank account?
Because they've just basically came out and said that any and all money or odd large deposits coming from, whether they're cash or checks, whatever they may be, have to be sourced from where they actually came from, because what they're trying to do, most programs, especially conventionally, they say that, you have to have X amount of your own money into the deal. So they're trying to eliminate people that are borrowing money from somebody, throwing it into their bank account, and then giving it back to them.
Right, but once the loan has already been approved, putting money in afterwards shouldn't matter. Does it have something to do with the Patriot Act? Because it doesn't sound like it's a credit issue.
Well, more on when I said the credit inquiry thing, that is something that happens kind of after the fact because it's already been approved, but they can still check it later. As far as the checking and savings accounts, why I said that is because a lot of time you've given your statements already, right? So they've asked for like the last two months consecutive bank statements. But while you're going through this transaction, they might say, okay, we want an updated bank statement to right now. And what I've seen is people have, after they had already submitted their paperwork, they were probably like, oh, well, I probably don't have to supply anything else. And all of a sudden they get a $3,000 check or something from a relative or cash, whatever it may be, they deposit it in there. That then shows up, then they have to explain it. Does that make sense?
It does, although I don't think it would, if I were the lender, if somebody all of a sudden had more money that couldn't be explained and I've already approved the loan, I would think, well, that's good. There's more money available to pay back the loan.
Yeah, you would think. But that's rational, though, Lewis. That's rational. And majority of what lenders do these days is irrational.
Yeah, they're following rules, and I'm just wondering whether that's a lender originated rule or whether there's something else to play there.
Well, there is, I believe, the actual main guidelines, conventionally speaking anyway, they do state that, and that's pretty universal.
Any unusual plus or negative to the account.
Yeah, and it's they're just little things. I mean, all these little things in the grand scheme of things add up to be very big things, because ultimately somebody's loan ends up getting denied, which ultimately means that they can't buy that home, which ultimately means the seller's now stuck in a situation they can't get rid of it. I mean, all because of, what somebody may have thought didn't matter. And that's why what I really emphasize, and I emphasize week in and week out, is making sure you're working with professionals that will ensure that a lot of these small things are taken care of up front, and that you know these things so that you can prepare yourself.
You can't take care of them unless you're aware of them, and it's the professional's job to make you aware of them.
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of these things, to be honest, Lewis, I mean, every day, there's a new guideline or something like that if I just came out and said, hey, this is what I think, I might have been wrong. So I always have to go back and double check myself. It's just the nature of the beast right now is that, things are changing on a daily basis, sometimes hourly, it feels like. I mean, obviously interest rates change, many times a day. So it's important that, you're working with people that have a pulse on the market, can tell you what's going on. If you're working with a professional that can't tell you what's going on, what's on deck this week and what happened last week and how that can affect you in your real estate decisions, then you might want to take a wild guess at maybe who you should be, or look at somebody else, because it's important that they know these things, even though they may feel that it's not relevant. Everything is relevant to me. I can't tell you how many times, Lewis, you and I are on here talking, and we say, hey, this Fed meeting could really move the market one way or the other. And then we come in, and lo and behold, look, the market just dropped out. Stock market dropped like 400 or 500 points, and rates come down. So it's critical because that's a timing thing. That could actually save you, $50, $100 on your mortgage payment. And, it's part of my job is to stay on top of these things. 877-245-2030. I want to jump in. There was an article and actually a release by CoreLogic that actually just reported that the amount of shadow inventory has fallen to the lowest levels not seen since 2008. The chief economist for CoreLogic, is Mark Fleming, explains that since peaking at 2.1 million units in January of 2010, the shadow inventory has fallen by 28%. The decline in the shadow inventory is a positive development because it removes some of the downward pressure on house prices. This is one of the reasons why some markets that were formerly identified as deeply distressed, like Arizona, California, and Nevada, are now experiencing price increases. Now, obviously, Lewis, I mean, it seems like common sense to you and I that if you have an oversupply of homes, that's going to have downward pressure on home prices. So obviously, it seems like now that a lot of those so-called shadow inventory homes, or homes that were basically had people that were not making their mortgage payments and the bank hadn't yet foreclosed on them, are now either they're moving into foreclosure or they're being short sold. And because there's another article that actually came out the other day that was showing that in May, foreclosures had spiked by 9% compared with a month earlier. And this all was kind of linked with, that settlement that was finalized in April with all the banks. So we're going to start to see a lot more of the banks coming through and following through with the foreclosure process, or allowing the short sale to get through. And I think we're going to start to clear a lot of this inventory. I feel like...
Ryan, I've seen the Realtor Magazine sent out both articles. They sent out the article about shadow inventory dropping, right?
Yep.
They're saying there's still, 1.5 million units. That doesn't mean that the actual inventory of available homes for sale has declined. It just means that the shadow inventory behind it has declined. So I think a truer number is what's the actual inventory that's on the market. Now, the other article that they sent out was investors find shortage of REO bargains. And it says, according to Bloomberg, foreclosure bulk sales are slow to take off as investors report a shrinking pool of bargain-priced distressed homes.
Yes.
So you're getting mixed messages from the market as to exactly what is available on the market and what is coming to the market.
Yeah, and, the best, I mean, obviously my marketplace is a DC metro area. So what we're seeing here is a undersupply of homes. I mean,
you have an actual undersupply.
Yeah, I mean,
shadow inventory and so on. Right?
Exactly, and so and as far as the shadow inventory is, there's not many foreclosures that come on the market here. So we do have short sales. We have a decent amount of short sales. We have a lot of regular sales as well, though. But the basic premise for why we're seeing these dramatic increases in prices is because there's just not enough homes on the market for the amount of people that are out there willing and able to buy right now.
Which is not the case in Arizona. Even though you've dropped 37% in shadow inventory, there's still probably a glut of homes that are just available to be bought, either normal sales, short sales, foreclosures, and so on.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, the prices of homes in those areas, Lewis, are still very, they're very affordable. So
Nevada as well.
Yeah. So when you're seeing, areas where homes are very affordable, and they're not being bought up by other than by people that are investors, and then we're getting reports that are saying that, there's not these bargain prices, we've actually really seen that in the DC metro area as well. A lot of these foreclosures are not really priced as these, bottom bargain deals. They're not. The banks are actually, maybe going in, painting, putting some new carpet in there and putting it on the market for, maybe slightly below the market rate, but a lot of them, they're just regular deals.
Well, the other thing we have to keep in mind is that a lot of this inventory is controlled, by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and this article cites that bulk sales may have been delayed because of political pressure to monitor the properties and the pilot projects to rent them.
Yeah,
That's who would buy them would be the investors who would want to, buy them in bulk and then rent them out.
Yeah, I find that's very interesting too, because I think there's a lot of strategic stuff that's going on with a lot of these banks, because they ultimately, Lewis, you and I both know that the longer that they keep interest rates low, they have a better chance of having those property values swing back upward. So I'm thinking that, especially in DC metro area, a lot of these banks have recovered, maybe 10, 15, 20% in the last year alone. So they can, if they're allowed to keep these things on their balance sheets, or they're just taking, write downs, just small write downs quarter after quarter after quarter and pushing it into the next calendar year, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, because when they sell, it may make sense to sell in the normal course, but if they have to then take the loss because they sold, that's going to make them look that they're not doing so well.
Yeah, and I feel like that's more or less what, they're taking these small write downs over a period of time so they can hold on to the property and then ultimately, hopefully sell it at a higher price, 6 months to a year down the road.
Right. They have two incentives not to flood the market. One, just to depress the price, but two, they want to, as you say, meet them out over time. So whatever losses they take on the sale of them, they don't take large amounts in each quarter.
Yep, 100%. Coming up on a break, when we come back, a Harvard study says that 2012 marks the start of a true housing market recovery. Is that the case? When we come back.